Amendment number 20 provides that the Senate and the National Assembly, by a joint resolution, may resolve the question whether or not the President should be removed from office. These are the following reasons. A, serious misconduct. B, failure to obey, uphold, or defend the Constitution. C, willful violation of this Constitution. Or D, inability to perform the functions of the office because of physical or mental incapacity. These above should be investigated in terms of the said section. And whereas Section 97(2) of the Constitution of Zimbabwe provides that upon passing of a resolution in terms of Section 97(2), the Committee on Standing Rules and Orders must appoint a joint committee of the Senate and the National Assembly consisting of 9 members, reflecting the political composition of Parliament, to investigate the removal from office of the President. And whereas, Mr. Speaker said, the following charges are laid against the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe in terms of 97(1), 1A, B, C, and D of the Constitution of Zimbabwe. A, I'll talk about the serious misconduct. 1, the President abrogated his constitutional mandate to his wife, who has made utterances on issues of government, like the appointment and dismissal of government ministers and senior civil servants. 2, the President totally ignored all allegations of corruption and misappropriation of public funds. For example, the case of ZESA, where $5 million United States dollars was unlawfully and corruptly released to a non-convicted criminal, and some of that money ended up in the responsible minister's bank account. 3, allowing his wife to usurp government functions and access classified and privileged information, and the wife openly acknowledged it during numerous political rallies. And 4, allowing his wife to abuse state resources. 5, allowing his wife to insult and humiliate Vice President of this country, Honorable and other government officials in public. 6, allowing his wife to threaten to kill Vice President Mnangagwa and other government officials. 7, causing disaffection amongst the defense forces by allowing his wife to make reckless and false allegations against the country's defense forces. 8, harboring the fugitives, Professor Jonathan Moyo and Mr. Xavier Kasukwe, from justice. to defend this constitution. Willful violation of this constitution, which we revere so much as the public of Zimbabwe. Contrary to section 3082 of the Constitution, he directed, caused, or acquiesced with Dr. I.C.M. Chombo to write to the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, ZAC, justifying unconstitutional and illegal misappropriation of Zimbabwe Manpower Development Fund, ZIMDEF, by Professor Jonathan Moyo, thereby defeating the cause of justice. We heard his wife, she became the judge to say they didn't have a case to answer. D, number 2 under B and C. Contrary to section 2597, as read together with section 187 of the Constitution, he reversed the appointment of Prosecutor General Ray Gowa to protect Professor Jonathan Moyo from prosecution. I go to D. Ability to perform the functions of the office because of physical or mental incapacity. Honorable Speaker, honorable members in this august house, because of old age, and we will all grow old, it's a process, nothing wrong. Because of his old age, he is unable to represent the state with that decorum and dignity expected of the office of the president, in that he has to be handheld by either his wife or an aide to avoid stumbling or falling. Honorable Speaker said, we have seen our president slipping through deliberations in cabinet and even at international meetings, to the horror, shame, and consternation of Zimbabwean people and all those people globally who have held him in high esteem as their role model. Honorable members of parliament, we have even seen our president reading a wrong speech in parliament. Yes. And Honorable Speaker said, if I may talk like a woman in politics, like a chairperson of the women of the Zimbabwe Women Parliamentary Caucus, Takabiswa Chimiro, my president. As women of Zimbabwe, who fought side by side with their male colleagues, as women of Zimbabwe, who have also achieved the education through the government policies independence of promoting the girl child, the women of this country do not deserve to have a woman who brings them down to just like people shout all the time. Madzimai vari in politics vanomirira vanhu. The women in leadership are there for the interest of the people of this country. When they demand to be also in decision-making position, they are not demanding for a favor. It's their right. Yes. 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 It's unfortunate that one apple, when one apple is rotten, There are some who would like to throw away the whole basket of apples. Let's throw away the rotten apple. Now, therefore, the joint sitting of Senate and the National Assembly resolves that the Committee on Standing Rules and Orders appoints a committee to investigate whether the aforesaid allegations warrant the removal of His Excellency the President Robert Mugabe from office in terms of Section 97 of the Constitution. And just before I sit down, Mr. Speaker said, this is the why some of us who travel in SADC countries, because at the moment I'm president of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, and we have no way to justify the so-called first lady who goes to South Africa and beats up a girl, a citizen of that country, and that totally brought not just the women in Zimbabwe, but the women internationally to disrepute. And on this note, I beg to move my motion.
Before I put the question, I want to remind our visitors in the public gallery that you desist from chairing. All members of parliament can respond. You simply listen. The question before the House is a motion by Honorable Senator Mnangagwa, as set forth on the pages 1 and 2 of the order paper for the joint sitting. Is there any debate? Honorable Maridadi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Can you push your mic nearer you, please?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This momentous occasion is not able to be with us because the Lord has decided that he should be with the Lord, Mr. Speaker.
Order. I told your colleague there, Honorable Mliswa, the procedure to be followed for that announcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand guided by your wise counsel. Fellow Zimbabweans, the time has come. The time has come for all of us to collectively put our signature on the structure of the government. The presidential candidate for 2018 for South Africa. We are sitting straight. Mr. Speaker, I rise here to debate and dedicate my debate to the memory of two great sons of the soil. One of them, Lookout Mafela Masuku, a man with impeccable liberation war credentials, liberated this country from the yoke of colonialism, came back to Zimbabwe, and was incarcerated by Robert Mugabe. The court found him not guilty, but Mugabe decided to keep him in detention. He was released. Then 1 week after his release, he died. Robert Mugabe denied Lookout Mafela Masuku, a man with impeccable Liberation War credentials to be buried at the Heroes Acre. Yes. And he lies buried at Stanley Cemetery in Bulawayo. Mr. Speaker, I dedicate my debate to the memory of 42-year-old Itai Dzamara. Mr. Speaker, Itai Dzamara disappeared for one reason, and one reason alone, that Mugabe must go. I had the privilege, Mr. Speaker, to talk to Itai Dzamara on the Thursday, and then he disappeared on Saturday. And he told me, and I quote, "Mkoma James, we are on the dawn of a new era. Itai Dzamara cannot be with us today to witness this momentous occasion." Very sad. Mr. Speaker, I then go on to the man called Robert Mugabe. As William Shakespeare said, with one smiling eye and one drooping eye, I'm saddened. It didn't have to come to this. Had President Mugabe listened, he did not listen. He thought he knew it all. Had President Mugabe listened, we would be here today. He did not listen, and I repeat this. Whoever is come after President Mugabe, please do not go this way. You must listen to the people of Zimbabwe. One man holds a country of 15 million people created in the image of the same Lord that created him to ransom. One man, Mr. Speaker, cows an entire nation. He incarcerates at will. He fires wantonly. Mr. Speaker, RG Mugabe become a source of insecurity in this country, and I'll explain why. In a space of 4 years, he dismisses 2 vice presidents whom he appointed himself, and he accuses them of wanting to kill him. He dismisses a total of more than 24 ministers for plotting to kill him. Ironically, barely 2 years later, he reappoints 2 of those ministers into cabinet without having them gone to court. And I'm talking here of Honorable Shamu and Honorable Chimeta. They were dismissed for plotting to kill him, and yet 3 years later, he brings them back into cabinet before they could go to court. What I'm talking about, the man Robert Mugabe had a very poor sense of judgment. And it is that poor sense of judgment that he must be shown the exit. I cannot wait to see his back. Mr. Speaker, when President Mugabe took over this country in 1980, the Zimbabwean dollar was at par with the American dollar. Come to the British pound, and the pound is the strongest currency in the world. Barely 20 years later, 25 years later, we do not have a currency. It has disappeared, and we are using the US dollar. President Mugabe presided over a crumbling economy, and in not a single day did he say anything that would placate this country from the doldrums. All he was interested in was personal power. President Mugabe was interested in his personal power, the safety of his children and wife, and everything else followed. He was not interested about the people of Zimbabwe, and for that reason, President Mugabe must go. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, and I quote from a senior African statesman, Kenneth Kaunda, President Mugabe, you better listen. Strong as you are in economic terms, because you controlled the national purse, recently you appointed the poster boy of Zimbabwean corruption to the national purse to head the Minister of Finance. Strong as you are in economic terms, and strong as you are in military terms, because you controlled the army, you controlled the police, you controlled the CIO. The masses of Zimbabwe have one superior weapon against you. Kenneth Kaunda calls it moral right. The right of political morality is with the children of Zimbabwe. And Mugabe was presiding over a rotten system. A system like that cannot be defended in the long term. That is why we are here today, to show him the exit. Mr. Speaker, I have the privilege to sit in Parliament, and when I sit in Parliament, when President Mugabe comes to Parliament, I sit directly opposite him. President Mugabe's state of health is such that he cannot run a country. He tumbled at the airport. He wobbled when he was going to the podium at the United Nations, and he had to be given assistance by his aide. When he was in India, he wobbled going to the podium, and he had to be assisted by the Indian Prime Minister, in full view of the international community. There are 15 million Zimbabweans, and most definitely one of us run this country. That is why the Constitution of Zimbabwe says, for you to be president, you only need to have three things. You need to be 40 years old, you need to be the citizen of Zimbabwe, and you must be able to read and write. It doesn't say what you are able to read or what you are able to write. If you can write Baba and you can write Umama, you are able to do it. Mr. Speaker, they say in Shona, hallelujah. I discovered that President Mugabe was not fit for purpose in 1999 when I joined the MDC. And that is what we've been saying. My colleagues, Mr. Speaker, to your right, only woke up last week. And that includes you, Mr. Speaker. We were telling you, children of men, rise and smell the coffee. The end is no longer fit for purpose. My motion to impeach President Mugabe was dismissed from Parliament because it was said to be frivolous. But the issues that I wrote in that motion, I replicated in this motion. What has changed? It is the same President Mugabe that said to be your presidential candidate in 2018. It was the Speaker of Parliament who presides over this impeachment today. You dismissed my motion. Mr. Speaker, those things must be raised.
Honorable Maridadi, you have the honorable. When motion was taken down, it was not exactly like what was suggested last time. Furthermore, we had a meeting this morning, in which we said, because there are two motions, they should be rationalized. I think you need to be honorable and tell the truth. Please, can we proceed with the motion?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are at the dawn of a new era where children of Zimbabwe from different political persuasions do not have to be enemies. People must be tolerant of each other. The spirit that is displayed in Parliament, Mr. Speaker, when we are debating, is the spirit that must cascade and transcend the nation. That is the spirit that we must see in Binga, is the spirit that we must see in Mavuku, and it is the spirit that we must see in Dangambura or Mfakos. The spirit of tolerance. President Robert Mugabe presided over basically things. He was arrogant. He presided over patronage, impunity, and entitlement. Those things cannot be in a civilized society. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to round up my debate by talking about the economic situation of this country. 90% unemployment. 90% unemployment, Mr. Speaker. A collapsing health service. That is why President Mugabe would go to Malaysia once every month for health checkup. A president of a country who use health facilities that he presides over. The next president of this country must go to Parenyat or Harare Hospital or Blawa United Hospital because of the facilities that he presides over. The head of local government, when he travels, he must use Zupco. Those are the facilities that he presides over. The Minister of Transport, Honorable Joram Gumbo, when he flies to South Africa, he must fly Air Zimbabwe, not SA, because Air Zimbabwe is one that he presides over. When a president leaves the country to seek health attention abroad, what is he talking about? Mr. Speaker, what is good for the goose is good for gander. If the health facilities in Zimbabwe are not good enough for a president, who are they good enough for? They cannot be good for anyone. What it means is that we must all be in a queue going to Malaysia for health checkups if that's where the president goes. Yes. The education system. Zimbabwe has, I'm going to wind down, Mr. Speaker, thank you. Zimbabwe boasts of a 96% literacy rate. 96% literacy rate of people that are not employed, Mr. Speaker. Everyone has been turned into a vendor. President Mugabe reduced all of us to vagabonds. This is why even in Parliament, the members of Parliament are always talking about their welfare. It is reflective of what is happening out there in the society. Mr. Speaker, I support this motion. I would like to thank Honorable Mutsvangwa for moving this motion. I say, without delay, members of Parliament from across the divide. It doesn't matter that you've only come alive recently, but from across the political divide. Let's append our signatures and let your candidate for 2018 go, and he must go now. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My debate, Honorable Speaker, will be very short, concise and precise. But I made this motion, Honorable Speaker, with a heavy heart. We did not expect that things would go this way, especially considering the work that His Excellency had done for this country for the past 37 years. He was a revered African leader, but unfortunately, he's leaving office the wrong way. It is said, Mr. Speaker, it is unfortunate, Mr. Speaker, but it is an unavoidable process that Parliament should consider. Mr. Speaker, I am guided by Section 119 of the Constitution, which talks about the role of Parliament. One major role of Parliament is to ensure that we protect the Constitution. We are a constitutional democracy, Mr. Speaker, and where there is infringement of the Constitution, Parliament has a duty and obligation legally to move in. And this is what basically Parliament is trying to do, because there is an infringement in the Constitution. So I support the motion. Has gone to the fore because we look and see a lot of misdemeanors, infringement in the Constitution, which we must protect. So we are bringing this motion before this August in good faith, Mr. Speaker said, because of what has been singled out, the characters that came out of the motion that Honorable Mutsvangwa has brought to the fore. Section 3 of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker said, in brackets 1 in brackets H, talks about founding values of this important nation There's one founding value that I want to discuss, which is about good governance. There's another value, Mr. Speaker, which talks about respect for the people. Mr. Speaker, as we govern, we draw our legitimacy from the people. But when we do wrong, the people again have a legal right and obligation, moral right to withdraw that legitimacy. Yes. So this is basically what we are doing as a nation. Speaker quoting His Excellency's words when he gave a press statement, he acknowledged that there is a crisis in this country. He acknowledged that there is a crisis in this country. I would like in my debate to congratulate General Kosandai Guvea Chiwenga for moving in very fast, very swiftly to ensure that we remain a peaceful nation and rectify the problem that this nation faces. And suffice to say, this motion, Mr. Speaker, should be supported from the Senate to the National Assembly. Both houses support it vigorously so that we live a peaceful nation. And these infringements should, in any event, be avoided with whoever shall be coming. Suffice to say, Mr. Speaker, ZANU-PF is a party that can cleanse itself when there is any mercy in the house. And this is what ZANU-PF has basically done. And we should support this position.
Indeed, there was honorable Senator Founder who supposed
taking this action. This action, Mr. Speaker, I want to say was not meant to simply remove the president, but to ensure that ZANU-PF is cleansed. Because the party has now been taken over by people of no history, people who have no direction, people
I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for giving me an opportunity to add my voice to this very historic debate. Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to begin by thanking the mover of this motion, Honorable Senator Mutsvangwa. It makes me proud that a woman of Zimbabwe, who also happens to be the leader of our Women's Parliamentary Caucus, has led this historic debate. And I also thank Honorable James Maridadi for seconding this motion and for his persistence to make sure that he brings all the members of Parliament of Zimbabwe, who are all elected to serve Zimbabwe, to put our